We're live. Good morning and welcome to the Wallet to Wealth Female Entrepreneur Series. In support of Halton Women's Place, we have put a program together called From Wallet to Wealth. Last year, we raised $15,000, and this year our plan is to raise $30,000. So mark your calendars for November the 12th for Halton's, for the Wallet to Wealth event with our live female entrepreneur speakers who will come to you and tell you how they found advantage in their adversity. Today, we have a totally amazing woman who has literally learned how to take the law into her own hands by creating Simple Solutions Mediation Limited. Her story of Phoenix rising from ashes after her own horrible, difficult experience, she designed a way to ensure that no other family will experience the pain she endured. Please welcome Neelam Dhall of Simple Solutions Mediation. Welcome.
Thanks so much for having me, Whitney. I'm happy to be here.
So happy to be here. So I've got us connected up, and you're connected up on your live. So
Yes.
Really happy to have you here. I'm thrilled about your business. I've done some research around you, and I know you have such a special offering. So we'll get into that in a minute. But first of all, what I'd like to talk to you about and ask you to share with us is some of your intergenerational traumas or societal messages that have created limiting beliefs through your entire life. And if you can share your experience with us.
What a great question. So I come from immigrant parents. And so, just thinking through that and all that they've endured, and we watched them as we were growing up, all of the adversity that they faced, one just coming from another country and trying to get jobs in another country and the discrimination that they faced. And not in Canada, but in another country, they were actually told to their face, you are overqualified, but because of the color of your skin, we can't hire you.
Oh.
So really difficult situation. They then decided to come to Canada. Let's try it out there and see. Luckily it was a little bit better of a situation, but watching them as we grew and, the work ethic that comes with starting over, and we've got to put our all into everything. But there's also a sort of a level of fear in them, right? That, we've got to somehow assimilate into this culture so that we can get our jobs. We've got to, do what is expected or what we think is expected of us and not rock the boat too much because we just want to fit in and we want to do well here. And so you kind of grow up with that, that thing about inside the box and fitting in and not speaking up when maybe you think something's wrong because you've got to align with your superior maybe. And so
right.
I think that really drives, I lived the corporate life for 20 years. I think that really drives you in the corporate life. But as you get more and more experience, you realize, hold on a second, I need to stand out and actually think outside the box in order to show what I have that's different than somebody else. So you're right. There is quite a paradigm there where you've got to just figure out for yourself, what is the right way to be, regardless of what they've come through.
So it sounds like part of what happened was you lost your voice.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. And I think in our culture as well, I think maybe we'll get into it later, even just divorce, we don't get divorced. That's not something it's so taboo in our culture. So even to go through that is really outside the box.
Yes. Yeah. So probably you just had to toe the line and, do what you're told. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that really takes away from the ability to build something when you don't have a voice, when you're just mixing in. So I understand that. So you're trying to mix in with the culture and not stand out. And then after so many years, it's time to say, no, I'm going to stand out here. So the adversity you experienced has brought you to a terrific advantage today in your life, and you're living your life aligned. And so you changed your entire vibe. So can you tell us your whole experience in that area?
The Coles notes. So, I was in a relationship for 20 years. And then to get out of that, not easy. It was a very challenging relationship. And, realizing at some point, this isn't working. I got to get out of this. And then again, facing that cultural, well, hold on, we don't get divorced. So I did stay in it for quite a while longer than I might have had I not had that perspective or that fear, and then realizing there was no other way. And so ultimately going through the divorce with a person who didn't want to be divorced. So them fighting you at every corner, and them taking it, I was always the peaceful one. So wanting to, let's just sit at a table for an afternoon. It's a difficult conversation, but at the end of the day, we want to still be friends. We have to co-parent these beautiful children. And, in my view, there was really nothing so complicated. It's difficult, but it's not complex that it needs to go to a court. Him feeling the exact opposite. Oh no, that's it. The battle is on. And so we ended up in this nasty court battle that went on for quite some time, spending a ridiculous amount of money on these legal fees, like just ridiculous, and getting nowhere. And, it took a friend to just say to me one time, why don't you just do this yourself? Because you're complaining that you're writing all of the stuff for the lawyers. You're speaking up in court when you don't like what they're saying. So just do it yourself. And I thought to myself, well, what do I know about family law? How could I? And, it just took him reinforcing the fact that, but you are doing it. And yes, of course, there's academia involved in all this stuff that you need to know. Don't get me wrong, right? They're experts for a reason. But at the end of the day, if I'm not getting the outcome that I want, I've got to change something. And so in that moment, I literally fired my lawyers and said, like, this is it. I'm going to do this myself, because at this point, what do I have to lose? I've wasted all this money and we haven't gotten anywhere. So really, what do I have to lose? Right? Even if I continue down this path on my own, I haven't lost anything. So that's what I did. I fired them. But interestingly, that's when I started winning in court, is doing everything myself. And I would research the law. What does the law say on this particular point? What does it say on that point? And what documents do I need to prepare? And I would just do it all on my own. And, it kind of picked up speed. I started winning my costs. And I remember I had, like, my favorite appearance in court, if you can say that, is, anybody can show up and watch, right? It's a public area.
Yeah.
So people were entering this courtroom and they started cheering me on as I was winning. The judge was just really letting my ex have it. And on the way out, they were high-fiving me, which is so neat. Goodness. But it was just, it was a validation of what you've been doing, but still no one wants to be in court. It just was so stressful.
Yes.
So we ultimately, actually, after a number of years doing that, found mediation. And in an afternoon of mediation, had a parenting plan. And that's what we spent all that time and all that money in court fighting over. And I thought, like, what is this system? It's so broken. Why did it allow us to go down that path for so many years if all we needed was a mediation? And so for me, that was my light bulb moment, right? I worked for 20 years in finance as a chartered accountant. And all of a sudden, I just knew this was what I was meant to be doing. Like, I've lived it. I know it inside out. I know what's going to happen in court if things don't go well. And to be able to bring that knowledge. And I think you develop a passion, right? When you've lived something, you really develop a passion for it. Did I ever have a passion for being a chartered accountant? Not really. I was good at it. It was, in my culture, you can do this, that, or the other. And one of those things was being an accountant. So I did. But here, like, I knew it. I lived it. I breathed it. And for me, that was I just knew I was meant to be doing this. And so I opened my practice, 2 feet, jumped right in. And now I'm a divorce mediator and a divorce coach. And I help other people not go through all that ugliness, because it's not necessary. There's nothing that is so complicated that you have to go to a courtroom. That's when we either are getting bad legal advice, or we're so wrapped up in our emotions that we can't see rationally what do we need to accomplish here.
Because there's so much anger with the push and the pull, and the logic goes out the window. And gosh only knows what happens on the side with the lawyer. They probably are, they're trying to make it work. But you're right. It's the common story that we hear from most people is that divorce is very, very difficult. And nobody wins in the end except for the lawyers, because, and this is certainly not to bash lawyers in any way, shape, or form, because it is a very difficult task when you have 2 people coming together, clashing with opposite goals. But it can be logically set out, and you've proved this. And because you've lived through it and lived through such a difficult situation, between your culture. And it's more than like, the thing about your culture is that it's also what you saw when you were growing up. Like, you didn't see families splitting up. They just did not do that. And so, all the power to you, because you stepped out of that. But you've stepped out of that, and you have this role that you are now able to help anybody across any culture, because nobody can come to you and say, well, I can't do this because, I come from Guyana, or, I come from India. That's fine. You can come from anywhere you want in the world. But if your choice is that you do not want to live under the circumstances that have been living in, your right is that you can leave your marriage, and you can raise your children, and you can have a fulfilled life. And so this leads me to your next question. Tell me about your awesome business, because you have an incredible service.
Thank you so much. And I do want to reiterate what you just said. This is not to bash lawyers. It's like any other profession. There are good ones and bad ones, right? You just want to make sure that you find a good one. And there are lawyers that do support mediation. So those are fantastic lawyers to seek out if you need help with some legal advice. And through this path, at some point, you will need legal advice, right? Even though you're going through mediation. But in terms of my business, so I offer the two services. So mediation being, what is a mediation? It's when the two of you come together with a mediator who acts as, a neutral third party who's basically facilitating this difficult conversation. You want to look for an accredited family mediator. We are actually trained and accredited through the organization that's called the Ontario Association for Family Mediation. So you do be careful, because it's not regulated in Ontario. So there are people out there that are calling themselves mediators who may not necessarily have the letters and the academia behind their names. So you do want to make sure you're getting what you're looking for.
Yes.
So in terms of mediation, again, you're sitting in this room and this person is trained in family law, and they're helping you through, what are the different alternatives for resolving and figuring out. Oftentimes, each person will have a separate agenda. Right? One person wants A and the other person wants B, but because they're so wrapped up in emotion, they can't see that, we could find something in the middle where we're each achieving what we want, and it's a win-win scenario. But if you're wrapped up in that emotion, so hard to see. It's so much easier when this other person who's not stuck in the emotion can actually unwrap that and figure out, wait a second, there's a way I can get each of you what you want. Or there's a compromise here. And where can we compromise where you can each live with what at the end of the day, you're not going to be happy. It's a divorce, right? It's still hard, but you want to be able to live with the ultimate outcome. And you don't want a judge who's this perfect stranger that doesn't know your life and doesn't know your family, making this decision that that you'll be stuck with for the rest of your life. Ultimately, you're dealing with these kids till they're 18 and then university.
Yeah.
You want to be able to come up with that resolution as to what my life is going to look like moving forward. So mediation is a really great avenue to do that. And it's it's a safe, calm environment. It's not meant to be he said, she said, and all this battling. It's not meant to be that rigid, stressful environment that you have in court. It's just the two of you and the mediator. It's so much more calm and much easier to come to that resolution than going the court route.
It almost sounds like you have a bit of counseling in there, where you're able to counsel each partner. So that, because a lot of this is control, right? Like the person doesn't really want the other person. Like, does the man really want a woman who doesn't want to be with them, or vice versa? I mean, really? No, it's about control. And I don't want to, I don't want to be the loser. I don't want to let this person go, or I don't want to, have to divide off this piece of my assets. And it's really, and when you get through on the other side, we all know when we get through on the other side, mostly we're like, oh yeah, that's done and over with, and we're all resolved. But during the process, it's very difficult. So I love that you do that. But the big thing too that you do that's amazing is that you have the ability to do the financial statements. So I mean, people come to me all the time to do the financial statements, and I mean, it's just like it's a hard thing for other people to do. It's not hard for us to do, but it's really nice that you offer that service, because you put it all out, and you clarify it for everybody.
Well, the reality is, whether you go through mediation or through lawyers, you have to complete financial statements to provide full and frank disclosure to each other. So yeah, because I'm a chartered accountant, much easier for me to do those financial statements than somebody else because that's my wheelhouse. And so, the clients like it also because it feels more fair because if I'm doing them for both parties, it's an objective third party completing these financial statements. It's factual, right? They're providing me with documents where I'm getting the numbers from. But then being able to talk them through in the mediation, what does this all mean from a numbers perspective, right? If I want to buy out the home, can I afford to do that? Or is that the right avenue for me? Does that make sense? It might be depending on the finances. If they're very complicated, I might say you need to go to your financial advisor, but also having the awareness to know when they need to go to a certain professional is helpful. But even back to my wheelhouse, talking about the RESP, how does that work in two households? How do the contributions work if now we have two homes? And what's the strategy for withdrawing the RESP when they are of age? If somebody's not got a financial background, they can't really talk you through those kinds of issues. Or then if you're talking about, if someone owes the other what's called an equalization payment, what's the best alternative for making that payment, right? Is it transferring a portion of the RRSP? Is it transferring a portion of a pension? Is it a cash payout? Again, having a financial person in the room, being able to talk through different ideas is really, really helpful. And it just gives them a level of sort of assurance that they're getting this added set of expertise that really will help them through that conversation.
That's a huge piece. It really and truly is, because not everybody understands the finances. And of course, there's a whole heck of worry. How am I gonna do this? How am I gonna do that? I mean, ultimately, it would be really nice if the person who's has the children, the residents, it's nice to keep the family in the family home. So
sorry, I got my
great.
facts going off in the back. Sorry about that.
So, and then also too, you have strategies on the actual the childcare and how all of that works. Like your website is amazing because it just lays it all out. So I encourage people who are watching the live right now and who will be watching it later to just pop into, you've got to put the limited in there. So Simple Solutions Limited, type that in. And
Simple Solutions Mediation Limited.
I'm sorry, I missed that. Simple Solutions Mediation Limited. And Neelam has it all laid out of exactly what she does. It's a beautiful package that really it just takes the pain out of a difficult situation. And I think it's just so important. Like, don't live in a situation if it's really unhealthy for you and for your children. It's just, I mean, people can be happy together. They can be happy apart.
I think it's ultimately, life is short, right? And you want to find that whatever that is that gives you peace. And so these people that are splitting up, I mean, they've thought about it and they've given it a lot of thought. And even when they come to me, I'll ask them, are you ready? Is this the right decision? I don't want to push anybody into a divorce, right? It is hard. But when you've made that decision where you're thinking about it, you want to think about, like, where am I getting the most peace and happiness and joy in my life, right? Is it staying in this relationship or is it not staying in this relationship? And we talked about culture. I think it's becoming more prevalent, and people are, regardless of culture, they're finding their voice and they're realizing, I don't have to live in this anymore if it's not good for me.
Yeah. Well, then look at how your life has flourished after. I mean, you flourished into this fabulous business where you're able to, for the next, 2-3 decades, for as long as you choose that you want to work for, you're right in the core, you're right in the heart, like you're completely aligned. You're doing your calling. Like, this is what you are here to do, and you had to go through. It's like the lotus that grows in the mud. You had to grow through that mud to come out to be this beautiful flower, and that you are. So, and your children will respect you for that. They'll just see.
That's what you want them to see, is strength, right? Strength and resilience. And I hope that and I think I've taught them that, right? It's not about bashing the other parent by any means. It's about living your truth and whatever that is, and following what you need to follow in life. But still, you still have good values. Just because you got divorced and something didn't work out doesn't mean something won't work out in the future.
Yeah, but it's not a failure.
Absolutely. I have 2 beautiful kids from this relationship. How could it be, right? I mean, That's the best thing that came out of that relationship. I would never look back on that. And all we do is we teach them, we're moving forward. How do we move forward to get our best life?
That I love that. I love that. So what next? Tell us what is next on the horizon for you?
I think it's really more of the same. I get so much joy out of just helping people, not like just, again, not going through the madness, because it's not necessary. And I think, having gone through it, luckily I tend to get a lot of amicable clients, which is so lovely to see. But in that moment where you get that person who's just not, he or she is just not on board, being able to pull them aside and talk them through, listen, if you don't come to a resolution in this mediation, here's what will happen in court. And just being able to talk to them about realities and, again, having lived it and seen it, that really brings them back on board, because they get like, I don't want to end up in court. I'm here, I'm in a mediation for a reason. Yes, maybe I'm being difficult in this moment, but at the end of the day, I want a resolution. So you're right, Neelam, I don't want to end up down that road having this judge putting something on me that I don't want to follow. Okay. And it reels them back in, but because you're speaking from experience, like this isn't just me making something up, I've lived it. So that's really helpful to somebody to hear that from somebody that's gone through it.
Yes. Yes. Well, this is so great. I hope that you are asked over and over again to speak on different platforms to share your knowledge, your experience, and what you do. What you do, because my goodness, if I had met you, let me see, I'm trying to remember when I got divorced, 30 more than 30 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, it would have been, because I just feel that not only do you have the practical knowledge on how to do things, so that you have the left brain, but you also have the right brain. So you've got both sides of your mind working, where you actually have a counseling side that talks some sense in. Because I remember when I was going through that, it was more than 3 decades ago, but it was chaotic and it was emotional and it was ridiculous. It was just, and unfortunately that's what happens, because you're in that crazy making. And if there had been somebody that had a logical, the logical side, but the counseling side that could kind of talk us both off the ledge to say, look, this is what's happening and how do you want it to appear? Because, in the beginning, you're right, there's always the one partner that doesn't want it to happen. And it's like, God, you almost have to like cut off your arm to get rid of the person that you don't want to be with. So, my God, it's like, how illogical is that? But it just happens. Somebody doesn't want to let go. And unfortunately, we live in a continent where this is allowed, and it happens. So, and I wish everybody a happy life and a happy marriage, because I think that marriage is fabulous and family
You
is
found
fabulous.
the right person? Absolutely. I was just going to say, that's a great segue into the divorce coaching, right? Like, what is divorce coaching? It's when you talk to this person who can help you figure out the alternatives and the strategy. One of the biggest things that we forget to do in divorce is talk about strategy. When you are dealing with somebody with a very difficult personality, your strategy is totally different than when you're dealing with somebody who's reasonable. And so sometimes it helps, unfortunately, with the lawyer, we end up just spewing we just want like emotional support, but that's not what their job is, right? Their job is to help you through a legal issue. So when you have a divorce coach and you're spending all this money on this lawyer and they're happy to listen to you, but that's not going to further you in your process. The divorce coach, on the other hand, can kind of steer you through. One is the emotion, and they might be suggesting resources for you to deal with the emotions, but talking to you about strategy. What's the best way to get through this divorce with the least amount of cost, the least amount of pain, the least amount of stress? What resources do you need? What's the best process for you? If you're thinking through the legal battle versus mediation or some other alternative, talking through those things, right? And so it's really nice to have this person that's in your basically in your back pocket, and you call them whenever you need help. Again, they're on your side. They're not there to extend any of this battle. They're there on your side to help you through the process in the best, most efficient way for you.
Right. Yes, and I like what you said. You're not trying to extend the battle. You're trying to resolve it. Can somebody come to you for advice? So for divorce coaching, if they're thinking that they might want to go down this path, but they're not 100% sure, so they want to come and get some solid coaching on what is this? Like what is divorce? What is the process, and what am I looking at?
So I say there's kind of three levels of where you might be. It might be exactly what you just said. I'm thinking about it, and that's actually a really great thing to do, because you want to know what all your options are. You know, knowledge is power, and you might get all this information and decide maybe it's not for you. That's okay. But you talk to the divorce coach. Again, the divorce coach isn't there to push you into something. They're there to offer information and guide you. And so that's a great time before making that decision. I need all this information to decide, is this the right thing for me? And then it might be, you've made the decision. Now what? I have no idea where to start. Talk to a divorce coach. Again, there's no negativity in what they're doing, because they're just helping you research and gain knowledge and figure out what your next steps are. And then it could even be, I'm stuck in this ugly court battle. Get me out of here. That was me, right? Get me out of here. There's nothing preventing you from stopping. Just because you're in the middle of a divorce, you know, an ugly divorce in a courtroom, doesn't mean you can't stop it.
Yeah, and I've heard these cases where they go to court and things don't get resolved, or there's judgments, and people just don't follow through, and it's just really hard to understand. So it seems like you have a way to just navigate through this and cut out all the nonsense. Yeah, so your mandate is to get this resolved, and get it resolved in a timely manner, and an equitable manner, where not only are we talking about financial equality, but we're talking about the whole mental equality, so that each partner feels, okay, this is fair, this is teamwork, we've come to a decision, and this is what we're going to do together, and this is how we're going to live our lives moving forward.
And
And my goodness,
we're also talking about the parenting plan, right? Like that's a big piece too, is what happens with the kids, and when will mom see them, dad see them, each parent. And again, having lived it, I get the emotions. That's a really emotional conversation. It's hard to think about, I'm not going to see my kids every single day. So having somebody there that has compassion for what you're going through, but then also talking to you, it's hard thinking about, well, what's going to happen at Christmas or some other important holiday, and being able to coach them through. There's no reason a child can't see both parents on that holiday, right? It doesn't have to be every other year. And that's the beauty of mediation. It gives you the flexibility to come up with any scenario that fits your family. And so then having them, just seeing them breathe in that moment, holy cow, I don't have to do this thing every other year. There is a solution for me that works, that makes me feel better, right? It's really powerful.
I love it. I love it. Well, okay, we've come to the end of our time here. So just want to thank everybody for watching and commenting. And thank you, Neelam, for who you are and what you give, and the knowledge that you have, and how you've applied this to help other people. Because I'm sure working in an accounting firm, you're paid on a regular basis, and here you now eat what you kill. And I mean, I've been an entrepreneur for 35 years, and so I do know what that is like. And there has to be a tremendous amount of drive, conviction, and cause, and you have that. So I'm just really happy that you were here with us today. So thank you so much for being here.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Okay, well, we'll see you again. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.